Do you want to start with the question, or can I just ask her, because I'm a storyteller and I have many, many questions. Are you okay with this, Rajni? Yes, please. We'll make it as informal as we can. Yes.
Personal favorite always had been Tantri the Mantri, right? So I have a question regarding that. Like there is this thing where Tantri always wants to kill Hoja and get the kingdom, right? Now that you're not a part of Tinkle, if you would have had a choice, how would you end it? Like I want to have a satisfying ending to the story, which I don't have, right? It never has a conclusion. It's an ongoing series of failed attempts, right?
Like a lot of your exam papers, but here we're not talking about it.
So, from that question, I assume you have not read Tinkle the last few years. Okay, I'll tell you why I said that. So, just before I left Tinkle, one thing we brought, so Supandi, Shambhu, Tantri, they were all very popular, right? And they used to go on a loop. Like Shambhu would chase a leopard, something would fall on his head, that's it. And Tantri, same thing. Tantri wants to be the king, some kind of shadyantra, and then nothing would happen. So what we did is, in the last 2 years before I quit, we started story arcs for the entire year. One arc was about Tantri becoming king. Okay, and became hugely popular because the media picked it up, because 30, 40 years say Tantri had been trying and failing. Finally, we decided, chalo bana dete usko raja. Kya karte hai? So that was a lot of fun because we all brainstormed and thought about, abhi Tantri raja banega to kya hoga? Actually, does anyone have any ideas about what would have happened? So basically, what happens when you're giving responsibility? You stress out, yaar. So that's exactly what happened to Tantri. So it was a very funny take, and we did go through the entire thing, an entire year of practically Raja Huja being Gayab and Tantri getting to be king and not being able to hold on. So it was kind of, if you remember the last season of Game of Thrones, the most pathetic season. So I think for us, Tantri becoming king was our Game of Thrones, the right one.
Any other questions around whatever characters, Tinkle, why did you do this? The guy in the last is just raising his hands or stretching? Yeah, he's not even here with us physically or mentally. What's up? हाँ मैं तो टीचर ही हूँ ना, छोड़ूंगी कहाँ? भाई सब ठीक ना? पढ़ते हो? So anyway, Rajani, quick thing. Stories. Let's start with stories before we go to comics. Stories for most of us is always dada dadi ki kahaniyan, you know. Yeah. While stories is all the sessions that all the speakers have talked about is apni kahani batao, meri kahani suno. Stories are central. Brand has a story. Why are they important, and why is it something that I feel academics should constantly integrate? You know, you're a storyteller, so.
Okay, I think, I don't know who all has been attending sessions since the morning. Okay, I had the pleasure to be attending most of those sessions. So I think this sort of came up in all those sessions. One was about Tapas talking about the blue socks, the pink socks. Second one was about ma'am talking about the heart rhythms and how you breathe. And just now, when ma'am talked about tides and mountains. So basically, if you look at it, all of us are living stories of ourselves. So all of you are stories still being written. So I think you had a question, right, about what to do now, what to do later. It is a story you are writing. So I don't think most of us are aware of this. We just look at it as we are born, we get educated, we get married, and then we die. But you don't realize that you have this one life and you can do whatever you like out of it. So the risk that you're talking about, I don't remember who said this, the risk not taken is actually more risky. Because going forward, like she said, you are in the moment and it's possible that you may not have options or gigs may not turn out. But that's a matter of your planning, right? Like if you're going into something uncertain, make your savings. Like she's going into sabbatical, I'm on a sabbatical right now. I quit Tinkle. So why are stories important? Because you are writing stories of your life. and how do you communicate with someone else. So, for example, when my background is diverse, I didn't know what to do in life, like most kids out there. So, I started with psychology. I love psychology, still read about it. I did my animation, so did 2D, 3D animation. वो बस नहीं हुआ, तो I did journalism, I did copywriting, and finally I figured out, oh, I can write. So I started being a storyteller. So everything I learned in psychology, in journalism, in animation, all of that came together. So for example, in Tinkle, if those who have read Tinkle, you all would know, Supandi, Shambhu, Tantri, these are the most popular characters, right? For 30 years now. When I became editor, I saw it as an opportunity. Honestly, I didn't want to be an editor. It's a huge responsibility, like Tantri becoming king. But I thought Tinkle gave me my dream of writing stories. So I owed it back to Tinkle to do something for it. And what I wanted to do was, I don't know how many of you know about Uncle Pai. He was a founder of Tinkle. So he did something beautiful for Tinkle. He used to connect to children. He used to talk to children. I wanted to bring that back. Plus, I thought, Supandi, Shambhu, Tantri, all adult characters. ये बच्चों का magazine है. So you needed kids, okay? Plus, all three men. So I'm like, sorry, 50% of the population is women. We need women representation. Third, in psychology, so people used to call me nitpicky because of this. Especially my team used to call me, my own colleagues used to call me nitpicky because gender starts with pronouns that you use. Most of our books, if you notice, when we were really small kids, it would be all he, him. Most of the images used to be all about, I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit of a soapbox here.
No, please do. It's not just kids. You see in formal university ceremonies, there are hymns, there are panel full of men, there are leaders who are men, people who come in saffron are men here. Please, we are all ears. If they're not, I'm listening to you, Rajani. Go ahead.
So, the images that are shown when you're a doctor or a teacher or a scientist, it's all men. Think about whodunit or even riddles and jokes. So they are all based on this idea that you immediately think of a profession. Scientist, there was a scientist, you'll immediately think of a guy. There was a firefighter, you'll think of a guy. So the only way to address this is to go back to the small details. And psychology actually says this. Start with your pronouns. Start with fairy tales. What is fairy tales? Some princess in trouble, some guy comes and rescues her. So now start writing about stories where there is trouble and the girl rescues herself. Okay, you start using pronouns, you start using he, she, they, because it's not just female and male anymore. I hope you all are aware there is trans rights too. So there is a lot of diversity. And if you notice, what scares people, what mostly scares people is what is different from them. Very funnily, I was just talking to someone outside right now about this. So anything different from you, you find intimidating and scary. How do you make that familiar? By making it familiar, it becomes normal. So when I became the editor of Tinkle, one was to introduce characters that were female. There was more representation. So I hope you know, most of the media in our country shows mainly north side of the story. You know, all your characters. Yeah. So for me, it was about Yog Yodhas, for example, that combined yoga and Kalaripayat in Kerala. There was Wingstar, who is a crime fighter from Mizoram. So we started traveling all over the country in our stories. We started having more diversity in terms of gender and other things. So this was my attempt, and I just realized I've lost sight of the question altogether.
These are important parts of storytelling, diversity, representation. Like we don't know Northeast. Even now, if you were to ask anyone about the 7 states, they would not. And if you're looking at representation, in fact, my problem with Tinkle as I grew up was I thought it was very patriarchal. I didn't know that as a kid. I used to read a lot of Tinkle, but I thought ये तीन मर्द ही क्यों है, you know, and it's only North India, you know, I'm being a Tamilian, I'm like, where are my stories? So I honestly gave up Tinkle. I couldn't identify it with it, but I have seen the change because now it's back at home.
Yeah, just to make a note, it's also about skin color. Very funnily for us Indians, we are all brown, but we love white. I have no idea why. So it was about celebrating different skin tones as well. So diversity in whatever way we could take it. So I thought children are the easiest to talk to because they don't have preconceived notions. You give them an idea, you don't preach to them, and they would take it forward. They would throw questions at you. In fact, I used to get howlers in emails. How dare you do this? Why didn't you make Tantri king, for example? So anything I did in Tinkle was in a response to someone who wrote an email to me.
Right. Sorry, even I got carried away by someone wearing glasses and nodding like they're rapping in the middle of a session. But quickly to tell you, Rajani, comics. And with this generation, clearly, whose attention span is less than, 30 seconds and 20 seconds to be precise, Gayatri ma'am. How do we keep this whole thing of stories, comics, reading, culture, diversity alive? Like, I know you're on a sabbatical, but how do you plan to do that?
So actually, I think my sabbatical is busier than most people's working lives. I'm a planner, basically. So that is why I advocated that planning helps when you take a risk. So I did multiple courses in this period. I did screenwriting, I did game writing. I'm sure you all know that in the last 2 years, games have exploded in our country. So, for example, comics also, brilliant future, because graphic novels are, by the way, exploding all over the world. All publishers want graphic novels. And graphic novels are not just fiction, they're also non-fiction. So all these topics that some people think, bada bore hai, or some people think icky, like I don't want to talk about trans rights. All these topics, brilliant writers are coming up with stories and writing stories on them. So in my sabbatical, what I'm doing is, I did 13 years of comics, and comics happened by chance to me. For me, I just wanted to write a story. I thought I have one life, like I said. So I don't want to be in only one field. In fact, I feel you should not have only one career. I think ideally you are a multi-talented and multifaceted individual. At different times of your life, after you achieve one goal, don't stop there. Look at the next thing that you want to try. Otherwise, nahi jiya. Okay, so for me, the sabbatical is about, I'm writing a young adult fantasy, socio-political one, set on another world. So I'm pitching that. I'm writing my own second book. I wrote a screenplay, horror short, recently. I wrote a game concept. So there are multiple things that are happening. So for me, it is like, I don't know which road will open up. Whichever opens up, I'll follow it.
That's amazing, and I'm glad we've managed to bring in people who are multitaskers in this time's sessions. Rajni, why do comics work well?
It's a very simple thing now. So for example, like you just said, it's an instant generation. Someone also said Facebook is obsolete. There's a reason it is obsolete, because everyone used to come and write diaries on it. Aaj mera birthday party, I went out with friends and blah, blah, blah. Instagram works because it is all pictures. You just like and flip through pictures, that's it. So most of us are very busy, very, very hectic kind of world. What captures the imagination? A picture, basically. So, for example, a lot of teachers and educators would ask, why don't you read? Why don't you read more? And most of you would say boring. Unless you come from a house or an environment where you're surrounded by books, or your parents or people you look up to read books, then it looks cool to you. Otherwise, you just look at a book, you look at 500 pages and filled with words, and you're like, nahin. I have enough textbooks and newspapers to read, I don't want to read more. So I feel comics bridges this gap, because think about it, in the last 10 years, Avengers basically made comics cool. Okay, so everyone knows comics by now. So what it does is, you have topics that are very, very interesting. You put visuals in it. So one of the requirements of comics is text kam hona chahiye. In fact, if back in Tinkle, the art director and I would have a war of words. Ki what is more important, pictures or the text? And he always maintained that it was always pictures, art and images. I believe that it's equal. That even if there is no word written on a page, it is because the writer wrote it in a way that the artist could depict it in a particular way. So I feel comics is a fantastic medium. It captures the imagination, and especially among young adults, in which all of you all fall. This is the mode of communication going forward. It is possible that you may not read a book, but it is unlikely going forward, unless you're living under a rock, that you would not pick up a graphic novel to at least check out, okay, that's trending and school, what is it?
Yeah, and interestingly, graphic novels, as you said, are also dealing with a lot of taboo topics. Like Ahmedabad-based creators have created the Menstrupedia, and now it's in all languages, dealing with menstruation taboos in a brilliant graphic format and doing very well in rural pockets as well.
Yeah.
You know, so again, there are a lot of people who are gamers here, right? And you did kind of touch upon that a couple of times, Rajani. So is there something, because again, that seems to be a space where the young generation is hooked on to for various reasons. So anything about your experiences that you want to possibly share?
So the way I look at it, in the last 2 years, gaming has mainly been about your mobile gaming, casual gaming, or you have those poker-based games where you earn money. So I think India is only seeing the beginning of the rise in games right now. India discovered games because of the lockdown, because you didn't have anything else to do. You were stuck at home, and that's all you did. But internationally, you all know that ulta ho raha hai abhi. There are movies made on games that are already popular. The very famous franchises like Assassin's Creed, or The Witcher. These are phenomenal games, and these are all based on stories and adventures. So when you look at it, or when you play that game, it is an epic adventure all on its own. You feel that you are that hero, because what does games do that movies and books and nothing else does for you? Movies and books, you still have to sort of bridge that gap and become that character. Games makes you the character. So I think games can be used very cleverly. Lots of people are doing it. There was a game that two parent gamers made for their child who had cancer, and that's a very serious topic. And they did the entire treatment and the trauma that they went through, they put it through games. The thing is, it looks like such a small topic and such a niche topic, but think about it, India has such a rising level of cancer. So if this is done through games, all that information that you need about, what is cancer, what is so scary about cancer, can you recover from that? If you have it through a game, what better way to reach your audience? So gaming, comics, movies, books, whatever you call it, phenomenal ways, all of storytelling. It just depends on who do you connect to and what are they looking for.
So I guess for all the gamers out there, you don't have to limit yourself to only the gali galoch and the streaming that happens in the night. Maybe you can take out topics like this, and this is a brilliant example of that. Any questions? I have a lot, but I'm quickly opening up to, remember Tapas point number 3? Ask questions. Yeah, thank you.
So as you mentioned the Avengers, okay, in India as well we have a lot of, not a lot of, there is, I only know Raj Comics जो superhero stories publish करती है, ठीक है. Now Raj Comics is not doing good, like they are financially bad and like the stories are also not good, ठीक है. But at one time they were like ruling the comic industry, क्योंकि अगर उनका प्राइस भी बहुत मस्त मतलब हाई था एंड स्टोरीज भी अच्छी थी एंड दे हैड लाइक मीन्स मूवीज भी बनी थी उन पे, सीरीज भी बनी थी. आई रिमेंबर नागराज यूज टू कम ऑन टेलीविजन, ठीक है. सो नाउ पहले तो क्रेज़ भी नहीं था सुपर हीरोज़ का. राइट नाउ वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ क्रेज़ ऑफ सुपर हीरोज़, लाइक टेकिंग एग्जाम्पल ऑफ मार्वल डज अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स टू कीप इंडियन कंज्यूमर इन चेक कि ये कंज्यूमर बेस तो रहना ही चाहिए, ये मास बहुत बड़ा है, ठीक है. सो वाई वी आर नॉट गेटिंग एनी सुपर हीरो कॉमिक बुक्स राइट नाउ, जबकि अभी तो वो भी बढ़ गया है आपका. मीन्स यू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ मासेस. आई विल बाय मेक like I will buy tons of comics जितनी भी हैं, So my question is that why we are not getting superhero comics in India, like Indian-based superheroes?
Absolutely. And you know what? That's a brilliant question because I don't know how many, I'm a huge Shah Rukh Khan fan, and one of his most interesting interviews after RA1 has been there is a Batman, but there is not a Hanuman, you know? So he tried to do a very big franchise and he failed of superheroes. So I think the same, I would love to also add to that question to you is why, when we have so many, and why the need for a superhero, you know? And I'm using hero as a very fluid term. It could be a woman as well. So, yeah, why?
Okay. I tend to go on, so please bear with me because there are lots of facets to this particular question. One, why doesn't something work? Now, let's say, take the Indian film industry for example, the Hindi film industry. I don't like to call it Bollywood. What kind of movies work the most in Bollywood? Let's say, for example, if you use the term, it's mainly your Salman Khan, that type. Honestly, very unpopular opinion for me. Avengers is very much like the Dabangg movies. There's not much, sorry, but it's basically about you have a big villain and you have someone going up against it. To me, a true superhero movie would be something like Thor Ragnarok or your Captain Marvel. I thought that was criminally underrated. That had brilliant storytelling. And you had something, it was not just about one particular, world is going to get destroyed. I mean, you've seen a million movies like that right from Independence Day. I don't know if you remember that. But as a president ka speech tha usme, I don't know what he was doing. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a very American view of the world. So why did I mention Bollywood? Because most of us, I think Tapas mentioned this about opinions and news and information, right? The focus, information is necessary. Someone also pointed out, we all have WhatsApp newspapers. All our information comes from there. Someone forwards it, no one cross-checks, and it becomes fact. Our news cycle, our media cycle has all become that. It's all about storytelling, by the way. It's all about narratives. It's all about I can convince you of my opinion and how good and how entertaining I am in doing that. It's no more about information. Ki ho kya raha hai. Like he pointed out, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. That's what the scenario is. So given that, why does that happen? Because it is about money making. It's about making profits. A template works. They know that the template is about entertainment and making opinions. It's not about news at all, though it's called news. So that works. So similarly, in Bollywood, there's a template that works. 200 crore, 300 crore. Now you talk in terms of that. So in comics, similarly, superhero, even in books, you may as well ask the question, why don't books work in India? India has very low readership rates. Okay, so why does that happen? Because most people figure out people don't read. So let's give them what everyone wants. What does everyone want? American comics. And that is a no-brainer, right? Because Avengers, Marvel, DC, they're all set. You don't have to do anything. Unke bade movies nikal ke aaye hai. So there is no risk involved. Our economy, our politics, everything is risk averse. So for Indian comics to work, it's not as if people have not tried. Tinkle, Champak, your Raj Comics, Diamond Comics, they're all classics. However, there is Liquid Comics, Campfire. There are so many of them that came out in the last two. Do you know about Comic Cons happening in India? So they happened in Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Vagera. Initially, it started with comics, okay? There was not too much public coming in. Hardly anyone would go to the store. So people like you are very, very few. Okay, that is the problem. So what happened to Comic Con? In the next 2 years, it expanded to merchandise and mainly Marvel DC based merchandise. So that is, and then Comic Con got crowded. Then we had cosplays happening. You know about cosplays, right? People dress up as their favorite comic character. So people like fancy dress, they like entertainment. So what can happen actually is reverse. That, if you make it massy, someone comes up with a big movie, on something. I think Anurag Kashyap was briefly thinking about making Doga from Raj Comics. If that had happened, and if they had given enough money, like Ravan is an excellent example, but I wouldn't consider it a brilliant movie. It was a good movie, but was it a Bahubali? Bahubali is the true Indian superhero right now. So if you consider that, because what is Bahubali? There is no mythology involved in that. It is a superhero movie. You can't defeat hundreds of people at one go. That's a superhero. So if Bahubali comes out in comics forms, people will be interested. So everything has to start from a small point, and comics is very small in India. Internationally, it is big, but people who like anime, who like comics, who like graphic novels in India, very, very few. So that's the answer to your question.
Also, I have a huge collection of comics from across the globe, and I have seen comic books coming in from war-torn places like Palestine,
Yeah.
which talk about what has happened and how it has ravaged. And I think it's a great way to introduce things to my child or the coming generation. So, what is the one thing that is a creation of yours that you want to tell us about? Because you added so many brilliant layers to Tinkle. So, what is that one thing? You also brought a girl, as a schoolgirl. So the little bit of the process that went behind all this.
Okay, it was two-part. One part was my psychology background, the kind of things I wanted children and the youth to think about, which included things like diversity, gender equality. In fact, more than gender equality, gender neutrality, where you don't think gender matters too much in the long run. A controversial opinion, because honestly, I feel gender is a matter of environment, of conditioning. I feel if you didn't have all this conditioning, it wouldn't make too much of a difference between what a man thinks and a woman thinks. So this was part of it. Second part was like what I said, Uncle Pai was an inspiration in terms of connecting with kids. So kids used to write to me and say, superhero chahiye. So the question that came from there, that was the question and that was the demand that was there. And because I saw what Marvel and DC were doing, I didn't want to give exactly that to Indian kids. I wanted to do something different. So I thought about all of y'all are teenagers, y'all are very close to your beginning of your teenage. How did that feel? For me, it was an intensely awkward period of life. Extreme self-consciousness. It felt like cameras everywhere, like that Jim Carrey movie, always watching you. You feel as if people are always watching you. Though no one cares, no one is bothered about you except you. And you're clumsy because you're obsessing about, I farted just now. Everyone must be laughing at me. So these are the things that are going on in your head, and teenage was a period that most Tinkle readers are going to step into. So I thought, why not make awkwardness and embarrassment cooler? Make it, celebrate that. Because if you look at it, intelligence, beauty, all these facets are very normal. All of us have it to one degree or the other. Most of us try to hide embarrassment or awkwardness. So what if we bring that to the forefront? So I came up with this idea of a girl, Aisha, who wants to be a superhero. And she tries all those things that most kids newspapers mein padha hoga. Someone tried to leap off a bed, trying to fly, actually more dangerous stunts. So she does all these things, and then she discovers she's a super weirdo, which means that when she's in public or anywhere else, she starts jiggling madly, very embarrassingly, because she detects other super weirdos. And what are other super weirdos? They are people who do weird things. Someone can't jump because they cause an earthquake. Someone can't wave at another person because वो person को थप्पड़ लग जाता है. So this girl starts detecting these other people who have weird, embarrassing superpowers, and she starts bringing them together and showing them these awkwardness, these embarrassments are important because you can do crime fighting with that. So if you have a goon who enters an area, who is bullying other people, you call out to him, you wave at him, थप्पड़ मिल जाएगा, उसको पता भी नहीं किसने मारा. So this became popular in Tinkle because I didn't realize this, but kids love telling stories. So this was easy for them to say. They came out with ideas about, oh, someone sneezed and someone got frozen. There were ideas coming left, right, and center. So this I was passionate about, because through Super Weirdos, I was able to bring about my ideas as well as what kids wanted. So Super Weirdos was the beginning of superheroes. By the way, I didn't know. It was a copyrighted term by Marvel. I don't know if you know this. You can't really use it. So crime fighter is an easier thing to do if you're planning to write a book. Yeah. So uske baad aaya Wingstar. That was not written by me, but that was a proper superhero.
It's amazing, guys. Any questions? I'm trying to shoot.
Ma'am, I just have one question, and that is, would you prefer a digitalized comic or an old school comic?
Okay.
Had the coloring option in it.
Okay. So for me, that's a very practical thing. I don't have a lot of people get very sentimental about books, smell of books and holding books and all that. I'm a Kindle reader. So digital comics. So for example, I have a problem. मेरे आंखों से आंसू आ जाते हैं if I start reading or seeing something digitally for too long. So for me, if I'm reading comics, I would rather read it in a book because my eyes don't hurt. Whereas while reading anything else, I prefer Kindle, because even when I'm reading a normal book now, I start highlighting words to see what meanings pop out. And then I realize, arey, ye Kindle nahi hai. So I don't think the platform matters, honestly, because think about it, if we become so traditional, we might as well start reading on clay tablets. That's how we began. To wahi karo. So there are no rules. Rules are not a great thing. Throw them out of the window.
Yeah, I'm the one who likes the smell of books and stuff, but yeah.
I do too. But
like,
let's say you have a 1,000-page book. I can just imagine holding it, your hands, your neck. I mean, Kindle mein pura aa jata hai.
Yeah, I'm
And
still trying to make the transition, but my arguments on the book are much better. But any other questions? Ask.
Supandi. So the story goes that I was not there at the time. This was much before my time. This was when Tinkle was born. So the story was Tinkle itself was born because Uncle Pai had a team with him. Subba Rao, I don't know if you all know the names because they were all part of the Amar Chitra Katha team. So Subba Rao, Louis Fernandez. Louis Fernandez ended up becoming my editor. So Subba Rao, he had an idea that we should have a children's comic as well. He persuaded Uncle Pai into doing it. And then there was a guy who wrote in from Chennai, I think. I forgot his name. It was from V. It was about a folk hero from Chennai called Chapandi. Okay, and it was based on a very fool-like character who sort of, kuch bhi bolte ho usko kuch ulta kar jata hai. So from Chapandi is how Supandi was born. And something I wanted to do for Supandi when I took over was, I was really tired of him becoming this servant, and the way servants are looked about, very derogatory. Even you see the Ramu Kaka in your Hindi movies with that gamcha. So I was like, give them a little respect. So I started defining Supandi more. So now Supandi could be a photographer's assistant, archaeologist assistant. He has enough possibilities to goof up everywhere. So that was what Supandi was about. Yeah.
And we all goof up, and we should celebrate that with characters like that.
I think Supandi kind of works because you get to laugh at someone for doing all the stupid things that you yourself do.
Yes, yes. Why you are pointing to each other?
Yeah. We know that Marvel movies they're fiction, right? So they're not realistic. They have unrealistic scenes and all of that. So if India tries to make a superhero movie, we know that the Indian audience is going to, point faults that, oh my God, it's so unrealistic. And I'm not talking about movies like Flying Jet by Tiger Shroff? Obviously not. So why do you think is because I'm pretty sure Indian audience watches Marvel a lot, but if India tries to make a movie like Marvel, it's just not going to, it's going probably would be a flop. So why do you think that happens?
I just said it. Bahubali. That was India's superhero character. It was not a flop. I believe the Krish movies, they're doing pretty well. And I believe the fourth movie, they're planning to take it further. I'm not a fan of the Krish movie, sorry. Because again, I'm a storyteller. For me, story matters in anything, which is why I called Avengers the Dabang. Because storytelling mujhe usme kam laga. So storytelling is not just about beginning, middle and end. It's about beginning, middle, and then I have so many roads. Where do I go next? So it's about that. And I don't think India is going to be far behind, because what has happened with Bahubali is people have figured out that big epic movies, large scale mounted movies work. But you need to back it up with good content. And I think in the lockdown period, we discovered good content, because now we are on OTT watching subtitled movies with good content. So how do you say? There's a reason that some movies that you would have worked earlier, that no-brainer movies, don't work anymore. You need good content to back it up, because people are now aware that if I have to spend money, I need to go to the theater to watch it. Otherwise, I can sit at home and watch on my OTT. So content is going to work. I think India is at the crux of it. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's only going forward. It's going to be all those big movies that you're talking about going to happen.
Yeah, and if you're talking about logic and stuff, if most of this Rajinikanth, who I also think is cool, I practically like him. I don't know why, but his movies have always been a hit throughout, and there's been no logic, biting bullets, splitting into half. So I don't think India has ever looked for logic in movies or in politics. Yeah. So can we have any more questions? Any other questions? आप ऐसे भी पूछ सकते हो कि शिकारी शंभू आंख बंद करके कैसे इतने सालों तक शिकार करता आया है. I've never seen that man's eyes.
Ma'am, I do know that you already answered the question that it is difficult for Indian audiences to go with the comics because of the lack of readership, right? But then again, I'm a big fan of, recently became a fan of mangas and animes, right? They have brilliant storylines with different plots, right? So do you think that in India such culture is possible? Because we do have comics, but they are all childish, right? They are not for the us consumers, right? So they're recurring story plots with brilliant ideas and suspenseful. This is something that Indian comic strips also need, right? So do you think there is a culture possibility for that in future?
Okay, to answer this question, I'll have to go into logistics, which is a bit boring for you guys. But just to let you know, so why does manga work? Japan as an industry is hugely supportive of its entertainment industry. So for example, manga in its original form, it comes out in newsprint, black and white. Costs are kept extremely low, which means when you can buy it, it's easier to just buy it anywhere. And the culture has been there for a very, very long time over there. Okay. The only comics I think Indian audiences are used to at most are your Phantom Mandrake, whatever happens. Calvin and Hobbes used to also come in the newspapers, right? So it requires, it requires an entire systemic change, which means there has to be someone extremely passionate about comics, has lots of money to invest in it without thinking short term, because most of our capitalists are short term people. 6 months mein returns aana chahiye, P&L. Okay, so you need to go into it with the passion that Uncle Pai had. Uncle Pai did not see profit on Amar Chitrakatha for 3 to 4 years. He used to travel with a suitcase in trains and to shops offering to put up shelves, bookshelves, so that he used to travel across the country to schools and colleges. That was passion, because it was his life's dream to do it. So he managed to do it. So you need an Uncle Pai in today's time. That kind of a visionary who's willing to put their money where their point is, and to look at the logistics. So how does Indian distribution work? I don't know if you're aware of this, but production is only one end of creating anything. Now, film distribution is easier because films are watched by everyone in the country. Books, not so much. It happens mainly through the big booksellers, and they have certain distributors who will come and tell you. And trust me, I know, have been in so many meetings where salespeople will say, "Arey madam, chalta nahi hai." Haan, so the thing is, I remember being so irritated in one meeting that I turned around and said, in the last year, I have changed my content. आपने अलग क्या किया है? लेकिन मैडम, नहीं आपने अलग क्या किया है? लेकिन मैडम, आपने अलग क्या किया है? कुछ नहीं किया. So, you need a really dedicated. How many people do you know in marketing and sales who like reading or like comics? You need people who are passionate to do it, which is why I said you need a systemic change. To create a system, one, you have to have the money to invest in it. You need a long-term plan for it. Then you need on-ground, whether it's on-ground or online. So now digital is also working. Actually, comics are facing a bit of a revival because of digital. But otherwise, you need a good distribution system, online, offline. And then you need fantastic marketing. The kind of marketing that happens in films. Do you know that most of the films that you watch, their marketing budget is as much as their production budget? Books don't see anywhere close to that kind of marketing. The moment you have that kind of budget, books will be the next Salman Khan over here. Yeah.
So, ma'am, there is one question. After listening to this, I observed one thing that in 2011, like beginning from 2008 to 2012, there was a hype of a game. So, game was booming that time. Gaming was booming, and Sony had PlayStation 2 at that time. There comes Card King games, which was featured by PlayStation that moment, and it had Supandi and Shambhu Shikari in as a character. So, do you think that drove comics on hype that particular years from 2010 to 2012?
Actually,
when the game was released.
Yeah, I became editor in 2011. So there was no particular period where games की वजह से कोई hype आया. Because the game, we were on the crux of an animation boom in 2001, 2002. We thought India is going to be the next big market. We'll be doing all. But what has happened, if you read all credits of all Hollywood movies, including Avengers, a lot of production is done in India. So India has become the VFX hub, special effects hub. Okay, hugely expensive because VFX takes a very long time and huge budgets. But in terms of creating, we didn't reach there in terms of animation because one fact about India is in Hollywood movies, you have a grading system, right? For children, for 13 plus, 15 plus, blah, blah. What do you have in India? What are Papa, Mummy watching? You're going to watch the rest. So it's family viewing, okay? So there is no focus on content for children, content for young adults. So when you don't have a focus if there is no support from the government either. So when you don't have that, then children are left to watch whatever the parents are watching, or then you have animation channels that will then show you Americanized or American shows and what works. Yeah, so there is no anything that you want to do different. Different is very risky and different is very, very scary. And paisa jayega, 6 months mein to returns nahi aane wala hai. So that is what happens over there. And so the boom that you're talking about actually happened in the lockdown. So in the last 2 years, because people didn't have enough to do, people discovered gaming. But even that is casual gaming, your mobile gaming, and your poker-based, pokerbazi and things like that, I think where you earn money. But I think अभी है ना क्या बोलते हैं वो लग गया है चस्का लग गया है. So I think going forward, people are interested in gaming. They know about all these consoles and devices. People are investing in it. And I think in the next few years is when you will actually see the boom. When people will get, saturation point aata hai. Whenever something you start doing, people will get saturated with casual gaming. They'll want more. Like for example, someone talked about superhero movies. You have movies that work now like Salman types, but people have seen Bahubali. So now they want that. So gaming mein Bahubali aane wala hai.
Rajani, I have a quick question before we break for lunch. Is regional languages India is diverse, but we do not get, and this is both a struggle as a mother, as someone, good storybooks, comic books in regional languages. Where do you see that trend going? Because again, as a journalist, suddenly the future that we predict is going to be regional news again, because there's too much of information even when you don't need it. So what is with regional languages, storybooks, storytelling and comics that you predict as a trend?
So when we were in Tinkle, this was a cause for us that we wanted to do regional language translation. वहाँ पे also the logistics question happens. One, you need good translators because you might get a translator, but as an editor, I don't read Tamil, I don't read Telugu, so I don't read Malayalam either. I know I can speak it. So how do I figure out the quality of something like that? Once it's out in the market, you'll get 100 letters saying, what is this quality? Kitna grammar ka locha in this? So that happens. So, but what I think is regional press is alive and kicking. Because if you, I think we think that English and Hindi rules only because we are in these bubbles in our metro cities. You go away from the metros, you go to Kerala, you go to Bengal, you go to Gujarat, everyone has regional publishing happening. So I think the question is not about whether regional will be alive or will it thrive and what's the, it's just about is regional cool. Because the cool factor is only about what young adults think is cool. And right now, young adults are onto Instagram and everything else. For some reason, we don't think regional languages are as cool as English. I don't know why, because no one was born knowing any language. We all learn it. Language is just a tool of communication. So there is sign language also, if you want to go there. So I think once you get past that mindset, that very normal, cliched mindset of what is cool, and honestly, usually what is cool is not cool. So I'm not much of a trend follower so much, but I feel it's just a matter of you need a Bahubali, like, you know why I keep using the Bahubali example? Because it became a phenomenon when no one thought it would. So you need something like that happening in regional, and in fact, it's happening because in OTT, that happened. In 2 years, you didn't have enough content coming in, no new movies. What did you do? You looked at languages, movies from other, and it didn't matter. It was, I think the guy who made Parasite said it, you just need to get past the barrier of that 1-inch subtitle and you're there. So you need, I think you need another lockdown happening, or you need something like Bahubali happening to wake you up.
We're all settled with Bahubali. Yeah, of course, Rohit.
I do not have any question for you, madam, but I just wanted to make a point here that last year when I joined Karnavati University and Preeti gave me this opportunity to start teaching for the English department, Karnavati University in its English honors course or in the English literature course is the only university in India which has an entire unit dedicated to graphic novels. That has been introduced last year.
That was lovely. Thank you for letting me know.
Now we should invite her for a few lectures as well. I'm guessing, right? Other than just for this session. So yeah, now that I've done the collaboration, Maine Ganga naha liya. Any other
Also
questions?
for the regional thing, a lot of regional novels and books are getting translated into English. So those who don't know the languages, I think the problem with India is that we have too many languages. We can't relate to another language, so you need a common language like English to access it. And once you discover someone through that, then you may be interested in following through. Yeah.
I get that. And as a content creator, I think, and as a stand-up comic, I've always realized that what works is regional content, whether you like it or not. Yeah. The final joke has to be in whatever region you are in, you know, that's what people connect. तो जो आपने कहा ना जो cool है, I agree with you. तो आजकल problem ये हो रहा है कि ना अंग्रेजी बोलते हैं ना हिंदी बोलते हैं ना अपना regional language बोल पाते हैं. It's become a mishmash. But on that note, I would like to end the session and take a quick break. Rajani, it was brilliant talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming, and I would love to introduce you to the department. So maybe with the graphic novel thing, you can really take this forward. जोर से बोलिए ना, सुनाई नहीं दिया हमने. हाँ बिल्कुल.
As a faculty of script writing and advertising, I always see one thing. The moment I say in the classrooms, project करना है, documentary बनाना है, film बनाना है, I got brilliant ideas. They are superheroes that time. That's in group. After 1 week, they start coming one by one. Madam, हो नहीं रहा. वो होता है पेन से और पेपर से. They don't love paper, they don't write. So the idea goes into air. They have brilliant ideas. I'm saying here in my kids, their brains are fertile. They are full of ideas. When it comes to execution, it starts from writing, dead. They are not writing. This is something I expect every person who comes on this stage and writes, give this thing to kids. Writing doesn't matter a movie of 2 crore or 200 crore. पेपर पे बनती है. इट हैज़ टू बी ऑन पेपर. लिखना पड़ेगा, उसके लिए पढ़ना पड़ेगा, ट्रैवल करना पड़ेगा, एक्सपीरियंस करना पड़ेगा. सो जस्ट से 2 lines more on that.
About execution or writing?
About writing. They are not writing. They're full of ideas. They are brilliant, but they are not writing.
Okay, something I discovered when I started to write my book, apart from the all of us, I think most of us think that we are writers and we have a book and we want to write. Like anything worthwhile, it requires discipline. So there is a brilliant book by Suhail Seth, I'm not sure, where there are different writers talking about their methods of writing. So in that I read most successful writers, actually most successful people, they have some discipline. So when I started writing, I wanted to write again. What I did was I used to go to work. I told my boss I'll be coming 1 hour late in the morning and I'll make it up later. I would put that time in writing, and I told him khule se ki I'm going to write my book. So this is what it requires. Every day, whether you get an idea or you don't get an idea, this is very easy to do, and this is a trick I discovered on my own. You set an alarm. You just tell yourself 20 minutes. बस 20 minutes मुझे लिखना है. उसके बाद no pressure. So what happens is, if you don't get an idea, 20 minutes wasted. You look at the trees and the birds and do nothing. If you get an idea and you're in the flow, trust me, you're going to extend that alarm for another 20 minutes. And that's what happens to me. And it's just a matter of practice. Every day, just put 20 minutes. Just write. It can be utter rubbish. There is something called writer's block. Honestly, that's nonsense. What you do when you have no ideas is put down nonsense. Put down anything you like. Next day, come back to it, read it. If you like it, you may like it. If you don't like it, write something else. But every day, just make it a practice of, I think ma'am also said, no, meditation करना मुश्किल होता है, तो 5-10 minute कर लो, 20 minutes नहीं करना है तो 5-10 minute डाल दो. But it's just a matter of, if you have something in mind, just put a little time, do it every day. And that's the only way I think writing can be done.